David McNeil, freelance. Martin pipped my question to the post, so I'll follow up with a question. Do you think that a base will ever be built on Henoko?
Soのための努力を政府が行うべきだと思っております。で、必ずしも今楽観はできないことも言うまでもありません。しかし辺野古の皆さん方の理解というもの、皆さん方の理解というものを得る努力というものをもっと積極的に行う努力というものが求められているのが一つと、それからそのいわゆる辺野古に移設するいわゆる飛行場の建設の方法にも私はよると思っています。さらにはすなわち環境というものに極めて配慮するということと、それからこれは永久使用ではないと、ここはアメリカとの交渉になるわけでありますけれども、その役割を終えたならばそれは当然沖縄の皆さんに返すと、そしてその場所をさらにレクレーションか分かりませんが別の目的に使って沖縄の皆さんに喜んでいただけるような空間にするということ、そういったさまざまなこの状況というものをより冷静に判断をするような場が必要ではないかと、そのように思っています。今のご質問でありますが、辺野古に移設ができない、しかしさらにその他の代替地が見出せないということになると普天間に固定をされるということになります。普天間に固定されるということだけは避けなければならないことだと思っておりますので、そのためにはもっと努力を今申し上げたような形の努力を一方ですると、他方でしかしこれはどうしても飲めないという状況であるならばさらに他の方法というものを考えるということも必要になってくるかと思っていますが、まずは私は日米合意をした5月28日の合意の方向に向けて日本の政府と沖縄の県との間で、そして名護市との間でもっと率直な議論というものが行われるような環境を作ることがまずは重要だとそのように思います。
President, I believe that first of all, the government is working hard to try to realize the construction of Henoko, and I believe that the government should continue these efforts. Having said this, however, it goes without saying that this is not an easy task to realize. We cannot be too optimistic about the government's prospects. I believe several things can be said in regard to this matter. First of all, I think that there needs to be continued and perhaps more renewed efforts to try to gain the understanding of all of the parties involved. Secondly, I think that many things will depend on the construction methods or the approaches that are taken to the construction of this airway or airbase. In other words, the airbase should of course be constructed in a way that is very friendly to or takes into consideration the environment. And also what needs to be negotiated with the United States is that this is not a base that should be considered to be a permanent base. In other words, when the base airway has ended its function, then the land needs to be returned to the people of Okinawa. how it will be used, whether it will be used for recreational purposes or something else, needs eventually to be decided upon. But the point is, it should be a space that will bring joy and happiness to the people of Okinawa. These are the kinds of discussions that need to be held. However, what I think now is most necessary is to create an environment in which these kinds of discussions can be held in a calm and rational manner, so that these very important decisions, judgments, can be made. Going back to your original question, do I think the Henoko facility will be built? If this facility cannot be built in Henoko, and if no alternative site can be found, what this will mean is that the airbase in Futenma will be made permanent. This, I believe, is an option that must be avoided at all costs. Therefore, as I've said earlier, I believe that we need to make further efforts to gain the understanding of the parties involved and to try to have negotiations that discuss the details, the approaches that can be taken into the constructing of this site. If, for various reasons, the building of the site at Henoko is considered to be unacceptable, then perhaps other options do need to be found. However, I think the first step that needs to be done is to have more frank, calm, rational discussions with all of the parties involved, including the people of Nago City and the people of Okinawa Prefecture.
We have Anthony, then Gephardt. One question, please.
Anthony Rowley, Singapore Business Times. Mr. Former Prime Minister, your vision of an East Asia community, as someone who's lived in Asia for more than 30 years, I find your vision not only inspiring but also realistic. In fact, one might say the only way forward in the long term for Japan, both economically and politically. But my question is, why do you think that the current administration has so de-emphasized or even abandoned this concept of an East Asian community in favour of a Trans-Pacific Alliance, the TPP, for example? Is this a result of the disappearance of Mr. Ozawa's influence within the party?
それは私が菅さんに質問したいもので。
I would like to ask this question to Mr. Khan.
私も先ほどのスピーチの中では非常に、滑らかには申し上げたんですが、優しく申し上げたつもりでありますが、この菅総理がなぜ TPP に傾いたか、私には必ずしも分かりません。ただ国を開くという考え方は私も菅総理も同じように感じていたと、理解をしてくれていたとそう思っていまして、その国の開き方に関して、ある意味で私は小沢さんというよりも、官僚の発想があるのかなと、すなわち外務省などは TPP で行こうというアイデアを強く持っているのかとも思います。ただ私が総理の時にはそのような発想は必ずしも表には出ておりませんでした。それは私が東アジア共同体を強く主張していたから控えていたのかもしれません。なぜかと言われると、そこは非常に、私にもわからないところはありますが、ある意味でのかつての小泉竹中路線というか、あるいはアメリカというものにアジアよりもよりアメリカを重視するという政策にまた前戻ったのかなと。とすると、そこの背後に官僚の力というものがあるのかなと、そのように感じておりますが、私は今でもこの TPP という形で一挙に 農業のみならず、保険も金融も、あるいはメディアも決して必要なのかもしれませんがそれを含めてありますが、一気にアメリカと協調して、全部を開くということよりはアジアに向けて、徐々に、できればバイナリーな形で、開いていくということの方、バイの関係で国を開いていくということの方が日本にとって適切かつアジアにとっても好まれる方向だと今でも確信しておりますので、より東アジア共同体の方向に向けて現政権が関心を強く持つように私としてもできるだけ努力をしてまいりたいと思います。
It's a very interesting question that you would ask me. As I mentioned in my speech, and I actually tried to touch on this issue in my speech, but I did it in a very subtle and very gentle way, so you might have perhaps missed it. But in regard to this question of why Prime Minister Khan has apparently been drawn to the idea of promoting the TPP is something that I myself also do not understand. In regard to this fundamental concept of opening up the country more, I think that Mr. Khan and I share very similar goals, very similar feelings. I thought we had, in many ways, similar understanding. However, perhaps we disagree or we have different ideas in regard to the methods of opening up the country. You asked if maybe Mr. Ozawa had been influential in some way or had an impact on Mr. Khan in some way. I do not think that is necessarily the case. Rather, the sense that I get is that the bureaucrats perhaps have made their thinking more clear to Mr. Khan. It seems now that, looking back, that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs had a very, very strong feeling from some time ago that they really wanted to press, to push the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. When I myself was Prime Minister, I did not get that sense from the Foreign Ministry that they were really pushing for such an idea. But perhaps it was because they were holding back from expressing their opinions very strongly to me, because I myself was very prominently pushing forward the idea of this East Asian community. So going back again to your question, I don't know. I don't know why this is so. It may perhaps again be a reversion to a former situation in Japan where, for example, the administration of Prime Minister Koizumi, when Mr. Takenaka was also very influential, that everyone, the top leadership and the top bureaucrats, wanted very much to focus on the United States rather than Asia. Policy is very much centered around the United States. But I fundamentally feel that rather than pushing forward with something like the TPP, which might have very strong implications for not only agriculture, but for the insurance, the financial, even the media industries. And then I would like to add a comment that perhaps the media in Japan needs to be opened up more. But putting that aside for a moment, I believe that rather than suddenly opening our doors so drastically, basically facing the United States, it is more natural and perhaps in the longer term more beneficial for Japan if we would focus on our binary relationship with Asia. I believe that that's also an approach that the Asian nations would also favor.